When trying to figure out what might be the most obscure Disney animated series, there are quite a few possibilities. There's the Schnookums and Meat Funny Cartoon Show, The Wuzzles, Raw Tunage, Timo Supremo. However, I think the ultimate candidate for most obscure Disney cartoon show belongs to Nightmare Ned, which ran for 12 episodes on ABC in 1997. This show is so obscure and unacknowledged that the computer game is more well known than the series it was based on. Disney has probably completely forgotten they produced it, so I expect to take a while for Nightmare Ned to appear on their streaming service. What is the premise of the series? The basic gist of it is that Ned Needlemeyer is a boy who keeps having nightmares related to something that happened to him in his daily life. As simple as that premise is, it allowed the artist to come up with a number of creative scenarios Ned found himself in. There's an episode where he dreams himself turning into a dog after he unintentionally eats dog food. In another one, his father gets him an ant farm, and he has a nightmare where he shrinks down and finds himself in said ant farm. Ned was voiced by child actor Cortland Mead, who that same year starred as Danny Torrance in the miniseries adaptation of The Shining, so quite the spooky year for him. Mead was actually cast in quite a few Disney animated shows, as he also voiced Gus on Recess and then Lloyd in Space. His parents are depicted as not entirely attentive and somewhat bewildered by Ned's actions, but a bit of sympathy sometimes comes through. Brad Garrett voiced his father, while former SNL actress Victoria Jackson voiced the mother. Ned is often tormented by a pair of bullies, Conrad and Vernon. If their names sound familiar, that's because they were named after Conrad Vernon, one of the show's storyboard artists, who later became a prominent animation director on movies like Shrek 2, Sausage Party, and The Addams Family. The show had a neat art style, especially when Ned goes into the nightmare world. There's almost a Tim Burton vibe, due to the lack of straight lines and edges in addition to the various monsters Ned would come across. The principal character designs and animation style also bring to mind the animated shorts of UPA. Nightmare Ned was supervised by Donovan Cook, the creator of Two Stupid Dogs and director of The Three Musketeers with Mickey, Donald, and Goofy. Meanwhile, Walt Dorn was largely responsible for the show's art style and visual design. Dorn would later serve as a story artist on several DreamWorks films, and most recently directed Trolls World Tour. So as you can see, Nightmare Ned had quite the animation talent involved in its creation. Considering the show's title and premise, you might expect the series to have its fair share of nightmare fuel. However, it stayed largely tame, even with the variety of monsters and surreal imagery featured. I don't know whether this is due to ABC's standards and practices or demands by Disney, but Nightmare Ned was more of a humor-driven cartoon. I guess the most appropriate comparison would be to something like Courage the Cowardly Dog, also about a timid character who has to deal with all sorts of creatures. In that case, Cartoon Network did give the show enough freedom to create some imagery and scenes that still linger in viewers' nightmares. That's not to downplay the creativity seen in Nightmare Ned. As I said, the show was more comedy-driven, with its fair share of messages thrown in, and I want to highlight some episodes that stood out to me. In the episode Canadian Bacon, Ned finds a pig who he wants to adopt as a pet. As someone who has long wanted a pig, I can definitely relate, and it leads to a creative nightmare, where the pig takes Ned to the family farm and it goes down quite an unexpected road. At the end of the story, Ned's parents let him keep the pig, but then we never see her again, which is a bit of a shame. Maybe if Nightmare Ned had gotten renewed for more seasons, the pig would have been a major part of the show, but alas. The episode, Until Undeath Do Us Part, has them do a take on the Corpse Bride folktale, which would eventually become popularized by the Tim Burton film, and quite a few images are even reminiscent of the movie. The show takes the concept in some really fun directions. The episode Girl Trouble has some themes that I'm sure must have resonated with some viewers. Ned dreams he has become a girl, and gets frustrated at everyone calling him by the wrong gender and name. There's one notable scene where his parents keep calling him the wrong name and misgendering him, and he keeps having to correct them.
Don't worry, dear. All girls go through this phase.
I am not going through a phase. I am a boy.
Whatever you say, Nedra.
With how widely discussed the topic of gender identity is nowadays, the writers were really ahead of the curve here. The show did play with the formula sometimes too. The episode Headless Lester has Ned sleeping over at a summer camp and being skeptical of the counselor's scary stories, and even makes sure to reassure the other children that there's nothing to be afraid of. The twist in the episode is a clever one, and an example of how the writers were careful not to recycle the same structure for every story. I also cannot help but notice a strange case of animation coincidence in the episode Lucky Abe. It's revealed that Ned is a fan of a magician named Frank Grimes. Yes, the same name as Homer's enemy from that one episode of The Simpsons. You might think the name was used as some sort of homage, but Lucky Abe aired only 3 months after Homer's enemy. Finally, I want to bring up one of the most biting, self-referential jokes I've ever heard in a Disney animated show, in the episode where Ned and his family visit a theme park.
Well, son, if it's that important to you, I just wish we would have tried the other place this year. I understand the lines there are much shorter.
Ouch! Ultimately, I do think Nightmare Ned made for an enjoyable show, with the artist coming up with plenty of creative ideas for episodes, and the writing produced more than a few laughs per episode. Sadly, it never took off, and was not able to find much of an audience on ABC's Saturday morning block. Adding to its bad luck, the show ended its run before one Saturday morning premiered, and so it never got the chance to appear on that successful block, as Disney and ABC discarded Nightmare Ned to make way for Recess and Pepper Ann. Disney never released the episodes on VHS or DVD, and they apparently did not even rerun on Disney Channel and Toon Disney. The computer game did attain a following, but Nightmare Ned is otherwise only remembered by hardcore Disney buffs or those who saw the show on its original airing. Although I do recall Family Channel showing episodes of Nightmare Ned around 2002 or 2003. Right now, the only way to watch the series is through uploads of varying quality on YouTube, but here's hoping Disney remembers it and decides to give it a proper restoration and a spot on Disney+, because Nightmare Ned does not deserve to be forgotten. See you next time.